In a world of challenges and uncertainties, hope shines as a beacon, guiding us through the dark times and showing us the way to brighter days ahead. But what exactly is hope? Where does it come from? And how does it shape our lives? I'm Annie Bennett, and I'd love you to join me on this journey as I explore the meaning of hope. I'll delve into philosophical perspectives, personal stories, and scientific insights to understand the power of this elusive emotion. So whether you're seeking inspiration, comfort, or simply a deeper understanding of the human spirit, let's embark on this exploration together and discover the extraordinary power of hope. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Chronicles of Hope podcast with me, Annie Bennett. Oh, I have a fabulous guest for you this morning. Now, my guest today describes herself as a somatic sex educator. Oh my goodness me, we're going to have to find out what that is all about, I think. She is also the author of the best-selling book. Now, brace yourselves, everybody. The book is called Orgasms Made Easy. So we are talking slightly adult content today, but the story of this lady is just so amazing, and I'm absolutely delighted to have with me the lovely Mangala Holland. Hello, Mangala. How are you?
Hi, Annie. I'm great. Thanks for having me on. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
You are very, very welcome. I mean, it's safe to say that we've not had anyone in your sphere of work here before. I'm sure you get that a lot, don't you?
I do.
Yeah. It's quite niche. Now, obviously, there's a reason, because I know your story already. I'm going to ask you to tell it in a second, but there is a reason why you are now doing the work that you are doing, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So before we start chatting about that, tell us a little bit about your background, and how indeed you came to do what you are doing now.
Yeah, I'll expand on that more when I talk a bit more about my story. But back in the day, I was working in corporate. I was working in stockbrokers, and I was traveling around the country running IT training and delivering system rollouts for stockbrokers. So very much dealing with stiff dudes in suits, you could say. And I was also DJing in bars and nightclubs around Manchester 4 nights a week. So I was leading this real double life of partying at the weekend and being this, outgoing DJ and rocking the dance floor, and then by day being in this little suit and dealing with all these stiff dudes. So it was a bit of a double life in some respect, but I really felt very disconnected from myself. I felt like I never really fitted in the corporate world, and I found that, especially in the DJ world, like back then, there's not that many female DJs now, but back then in kind of the late 90s, early 2000s, it was more rare, and I felt like I had to really prove myself, and it was always this push to be taken seriously. And essentially, I was masking so much insecurity by partying and putting on this bravado. And eventually I burnt out, and it created such a big life change in me. And I'm sure as we get into my story, we'll talk more about that. But yeah, I pulled the plug on that life. I sold all my stuff. I went overseas, and this is in my late 30s. And I just went off on this voyage of discovery to try and find out the typical find yourself. I felt
Find yourself.
Yeah, it's a bit of a cliche, but that was the start of the journey. Yeah.
And it's quite an amazing story. So tell us your story. What happened then? Where did you end up, and what happened?
Yeah, so I left Manchester. I think I was just before I turned 38. So I left Manchester and I landed in Delhi, which was like, whoa, could there be a bigger culture shock? That was wild. And so my intention was to take a year out and then go back to my corporate job, essentially, or to at least have the door open. And I realized very quickly I didn't want to go home. I was volunteering with Tibetan refugees and monks, teaching them IT skills. I really went deep into yoga and meditation, and I started to really connect with my body in a different way. And I felt, oh, this is some of the missing pieces of the puzzle here. All of the shame and the disconnection that I'd had around myself and feeling insecure, it made sense to me that, oh, here was some tools that helped me feel more fulfilled. So it was lovely. And while I was in India, I connected with this yoga school and spent a lot of time there. And they also taught Tantra, and I didn't really understand what that was. What they were teaching there at the school in India was just, well, this is tantric yoga. And they said, this is the original yoga that's not been distorted by the Westerners. And so we were holding postures for much longer, and there was more focus on energy. And it felt really good. It felt really transformational. And they hinted about, you could use this for sexuality, but they didn't really discuss it there. So I was like, oh, okay, whatever. Didn't think anything of it. I carried on my travels, and then I ended up in Thailand a few months later. And I was a bit, I don't know, it all felt very surface level and touristy. And I knew that this yoga school had their headquarters in Thailand on Koh Phangan, which is the island where the full moon parties are. Thought, well, I'll go check it out. I'll go do a bit more study with them. So they offer it like a 2-year curriculum, basically. So I went there and I fell in love with this yoga, and I was doing it for like 3 hours a day and feeling amazing. So I decided not to go back to the UK. I decided I was just going to stay on that island and keep doing this yoga. And what I didn't realise, to cut a very long story short, is that this was actually a cult. It was a high demand group, all kinds of distorted practices, particularly around sexuality. But it was so subtle, I didn't realise. And it was just gradually over the course of the teaching that more and more weird stuff was brought in, really, really wacky stuff. And I ended up being right in the centre of this. I ended up getting a job with the school as a way of funding myself to stay there. And I ended up staying there for 5 years. I was a senior teacher in the school. I was operations manager. So I was really in the thick of it. And it was in the last year or so I became really aware, of more and more reports of women being harmed and basically assaulted by the guru, the so-called guru, the head of the school. And then I had my own experience of that as well. And it was like the veil dropped, and I suddenly realized where I was and what was happening and how much trauma I'd taken on. And it was really heartbreaking. It's like, oh my God, everything I've believed in, my spiritual beliefs, my entire community, all of this work that I've invested, all of this energy that I've put into, like my entire life had got to a point where everything revolved around this organization. All of my friends were in the community. And to suddenly then just have that all removed from me overnight, and I lost my entire friendship group. I lost my belief system. I lost everything. And I left Thailand with 500 Australian dollars to my name, which was about £250. I got a one-way ticket to Melbourne, Australia, and I started my life again. And through that, when I restarted my life, I'd already been working with women in that environment in the school, trying to help them become sexually empowered and finding elements of the teachings that were beneficial, but without the manipulation and without the distortion and the abuse. And that became the core of my work. I wanted to help women find their power and access their pleasure and their sexuality in a way that was safe and free from dogma and abuse. And that's how that started.
So in this cult, I mean, you've described it as a cult in Thailand. Were you sort of ostracized? Did you spoke out? Did you? And then you were completely shunned?
That's right. I tried to blow the whistle. I tried to speak up, and the entire community turned against me because I understand they weren't ready to hear it, and they weren't ready to have their construction of reality destroyed. So I do
Wow.
understand it, but yeah, it was really heartbreaking.
Wow. But
Yeah.
very brave on your part to actually go against your whole life at that point. It's
Yeah,
incredible.
it was just there was no choice. There was no
Yeah.
choice. I had to speak out once I realized what was
Mm.
happening, and I couldn't stay there, you know. And so when I moved to Australia, it was like there is no plan B. I've got to make this work.
Got to make it
Um,
work. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I did continue to blow the whistle, and eventually it all erupted 3 years later. And there's been big features in The Guardian and
Wow.
documentaries made about it. So
Wow.
it did,
Yeah.
you know, they
Yeah.
gathered something like over 30 testimonials of women who'd been abused.
Yeah.
Um, but, you know, that was the start of
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
turning in a way.
Yeah.
And I realized that, you know, by that point I was in my 40s, and it was like, no, this is the next chapter of my life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's been such an exciting journey
Onwards
since
and
then.
forwards, isn't it? I mean,
Mm,
this podcast is about hope. So I'm
mm,
thinking that there must have been a point where you were coming to the end of your time in Thailand where you thought, "Oh gosh, this is getting quite hopeless now."
mm.
How did you find the sort of the hope to actually do what you did?
I think at that time it was it was probably fueled by anger, if I'm
Yeah. Oh,
honest. It
right.
just
Yeah.
is a
Mm,
very strong sense of this is not okay,
mm,
and I have to take a stand. Particularly as someone who'd been considered quite a senior person in that environment, every fibre of my being realised it was wrong, and so
mm.
I really wanted to find that hope, and
Yeah.
I just wanted justice, really. I
Right.
wanted justice
Yeah.
for all the people who'd gone before me. And as I emerged from that, that's when I really, really anchored into hope. It's like, oh, there is another way. There is a whole life outside of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
There was a huge community of people who did want to learn from me. My
Mm,
life wasn't over. Um,
yeah.
I'd been living in a very distorted microcosm, and
Yeah.
there's in a little bubble, and there's a whole world out there of people who really needed just, they weren't the kind of women I started to work with in Melbourne, were not the kind of people who could just go off and travel for months and go and live in the
Mm,
jungle and, drink
yeah.
coconuts all day. They were women with
Yeah.
real lives,
Lives
running
and jobs and
businesses,
yeah.
yeah, kids, all the rest of it,
Yeah.
and big stuff. They had big stuff that they were
Stuff
working
going on.
through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and I look and see some of the transformation in some of my clients. I've had women in their mid 70s have their first orgasms of
Yeah.
their lives. And it's like
Wow.
that is my message of hope, that it is
Yeah.
never too late.
Never too late. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
never too late to
Yeah.
find discover your power, and to whether that's to stand up for what's not right, or whether that's to move in a different direction, or whether that's to claim a deep desire that you've always had.
Wonderful. It's just
Yeah,
wonderful. I mean, I suppose that, when you lose something that is, it was your entire life, that place, that, you go through a kind of a grief process, don't you?
yeah,
Even though it was your choice to go, it wasn't necessarily taken away from you, although I suppose in a way it was. Um, there's that sort of that element of grief, isn't there? But even through that grief, there
absolutely.
was the hope that actually
Yeah,
I can change and I can do good and use what you'd
absolutely.
learned to do good. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I went on to do a lot more trainings and a lot more body-based approaches to really help people, so that people can find things from the inside out rather than being told what to think and feel, which is what
Wonderful.
was
Yeah.
happening in Thailand. But you're so right about the grief process. I'm now trained as a death doula, and I work with Living Well, Dying Well, training on their death doula
Mm,
training program. And so grief is something that comes up a lot
mm,
in my work, and I see it with my clients when they, like, even when we, like, if you end a relationship and it was your decision, or you go through a
mm,
divorce, there's still a grief process to go
mm,
through. There's a grief process in menopause,
mm.
and sometimes it works us over really hard, but there is always some gifts in there, some softening, some opening, steering towards something new.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a
Wonderful.
transformation that happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Fantastic. So you were in Australia and you I mean what was the sort of the first thing you did when you got to Australia? I'm just intrigued by this. So you'd sort of
Mm.
escaped this and you must have had a feeling of almost relief that you'd managed to get out even though you had been
Yeah.
ostracized. So, what were the first things you did when you got to Australia? Was it Melbourne, you said?
Yeah.
What were you doing there when
It was wild because I only knew two people in Melbourne,
Mm.
both of whom were away when I moved there. And luckily, one of them owned a yoga school, and she was teaching
Ah,
from this really beautiful studio. And she invited me to come in and be like a guest teacher within the school. So it meant that like within a week I had my first client, and that was
oh,
it. I never
fantastic.
looked back, and I'm
Yeah.
really so grateful for the way the stars aligned and the kind of the leg up that she gave me, that
Mm,
that helped me find my feet. And yeah, it was wonderful. There was such a community there of open, receptive people who were really excited to learn from me, and that was wonderful.
yeah.
It wasn't easy, and there were
Mm,
times in that first year where I felt so lonely because I didn't know anybody, and
mm.
just moving into this whole new scene. And I arrived in July, which was the middle of their winter, and I just had a thin cardigan and flip-flops, and
Yeah.
after living in Thailand for 5 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, but through using the body-based tools as well, I had to work through everything I'd been taught in
Right.
Thailand and work out what felt true and authentic and what had to go. So I
Yeah.
had a big stripping away process
Right.
of everything I'd learned. And in that process, that's where I really discovered my authentic power.
Yeah.
It
Wow.
wasn't what someone was teaching me,
Mm.
but what was my lived
Comes from within.
felt sense. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And this is
yeah,
what you are now teaching. I mean,
yeah.
is it exclusively women you teach?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I work with women, and I really help them go from feeling disconnected, numb, stuck, frustrated, insecure, to helping them discover their power, to help them really find their authentic truth and their voice,
Mm.
and overcome that disconnection, and then access their pleasure as well.
Yeah.
And it really is amazing because it has an impact in every area of our lives as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
It really does.
Excellent. And tell us about the book. How did the book come about and how
Yeah.
long has it been around?
Yeah, so will be coming up to the 2-year anniversary on Valentine's Day this year,
Ah, yeah.
which is lovely. And it came about because so many clients over the years said to me, "Where do I go to read more about this? How can I find
Mm,
out more about what you're teaching?"
mm,
And there were certain books that talk about certain elements, but I realized that I had to really pull this together and
mm,
do it myself. And also because I wanted to reach more people. And I'm very aware that not everyone can afford to come and join my group programs or work with me one-to-one. So
mm.
it's a beautiful way to be able to get this out into the world. And I've had people all over the world buy this. It's
Fantastic.
incredible. It really
Yeah.
is. So yeah, it became Amazon #1 bestseller by lunchtime on the day it was released. Um,
Fantastic.
we knocked Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus off the top spot, which was a nice
Oh,
nice
wonderful.
feeling.
Wonderful. Yeah.
And yeah, and people continue to still
Excellent.
love it and buy it, and
Yeah, yeah. And you
yeah.
weren't you in a magazine's gift guide at Christmas? I
I
see.
was. I was
Yeah,
in
that was it.
Grazia's
Yeah.
gift guide,
In the gift guide.
alongside Prada handbags and some
Yeah.
very other nice things.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. But I'm right in thinking that you're actually based back in the UK now.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was another big life transition. And
Mm,
after 5 years in Melbourne, it got to 2019, and my parents are getting older, and I was starting
mm,
to feel just this pull to come back. And I never ever thought I'd move back to England. I thought
mm.
I thought I was done with all that, but there was
Yeah.
just this deep inner pull, and I kind of finally made peace with it and set my sights on moving. I had my leaving party. I was all ready to leave in March 2020,
Oh,
and it was the
yeah,
week the world shut down.
yeah.
So I ended up stuck in Melbourne for another 6 months. I actually got turned away at the airport. I'd sent all my stuff back to the UK,
Oh my word.
and I just had to be in limbo for 6 months. Thankfully, I'd already transitioned to working online like a couple
Right.
of years before,
Yeah.
so that side of things was okay. And then, yeah, I eventually moved back to England in, I think it was August 2020.
Mm.
There was a funny feeling in my body that I needed to go through menopause on my homeland, and so
Mm.
it's been a real interesting journey of rediscovering England, finding my feet here. Again, everyone had moved away, everyone had got
Right.
kids and scattered, so it took me a long time to find my feet again
Yeah.
here. But it's
But
been
you,
really
yeah.
fantastic.
But you have done,
Yeah.
haven't you? You've
Yeah.
established yourself in your niche just brilliantly. As I said at the beginning, I don't, there aren't many people that do what you do. Are
Yeah.
there?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also on a personal level, I've been able to reconnect with my parents in a completely different way and
Yeah.
make some really good memories with them, which my
Mm.
dad's now got Alzheimer's. So I'm really glad that I did
Mm.
that while I had the
Mm.
chance, and that I didn't ignore that inner voice and I listened
Mm.
to it,
Mm.
and we've had some precious times that I'd never be able to get back. So
Mm.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
But
goodness me.
yeah,
What a
I am in a very
story.
unique niche. When I talk to like my accountant or
Yeah.
solicitors and things, they're like, "Oh, I've never worked with anyone like you before."
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find that people don't quite know how, I don't know, they don't know how to talk to you, or they get a bit embarrassed, or
I get everything. I
yeah,
get, sometimes I'll do interviews with journalists and they're like, oh my goodness. And they start asking me all these questions. And then once the interview's finished, then I get asked for all this personal advice, or I have people come and work with me, because they get to ask the questions that are on their minds that
yeah,
they've never dared ask anyone before.
yeah,
And people tell me stuff they've never been able to tell anyone, that they've never shared with their partners. And
yeah,
it's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it must be. I mean, because obviously that, in the world that you're in, there's such a lot of taboo, isn't there? And
Yeah.
there's such a lot of, hiding and covering up and not being
Mm.
themselves. But the work you do isn't necessarily exclusively on sexuality, it's power
No,
and the
that's
whole
right.
package, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I call this the female disconnection
Mm.
epidemic, that we have this massive, when I look at my friends and my clients, whether they're in corporate or whether they're business owners, whatever it is, that so many people are disconnected, not just from their pleasure, but just from their own truth and their own
Yeah.
power. And we're made to squeeze into boxes that don't quite
Mm.
fit us, or we're putting everybody else's needs first.
Yeah.
And there's years of resentment that are built up underneath that, going through the motions in the bedroom to keep the partner happy or
Yeah.
whatever it is, and rather than finding their own authentic voice and power and wisdom. And so
Yeah.
that's the core of my work. It's about finding power from within.
Wonderful, wonderful. Because I'm all about, and I did a talk on it recently about just happiness. Happiness
Yeah.
is now, happiness is here. We shouldn't be, oh, once I've got this, I'll be happy. Once I've got that, I'll be happy. It's all to do with the here and now, isn't it? And if
Absolutely.
we can't, be happy and joyful in the life that
Mm.
we're living now, it's really quite sad, isn't it? You know,
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah. And it has a huge impact on our
mm,
overall well-being. And
mm,
my work is about helping you tap your into goodness.
mm,
So sometimes pleasure might feel like an edgy word for some people, but it's
mm.
about tuning into all what feels good
Yeah,
and starting to really listen to that and
absolutely.
putting some healthy boundaries in place.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then there's an element of, I mean, selfish is a negative word, but it's sort of its meaning is actually, looking after yourself, being selfish,
Absolutely.
you know, and you've
Yeah.
got to, haven't you? Because if you're not looking after yourself, if you're not happy, everyone around you gets the the shockwaves of it, don't they?
Totally.
Yeah.
And so many people are going through life, particularly women, on the edge of burnout because they've just not had the opportunity to really tend to themselves and discover what's going on in their nervous system and prioritize that.
Yeah, amazing. It's just amazing. Now, I always ask my listeners, and in fact, you've told us all already, but I'm going to ask you again because I like to do this at the end as well. Is I always ask my guests what their message of hope is for my listeners.
I really believe it is never too late. It is never too late to try something new, to discover a new way of life or open a new pathway, or to prioritize yourself and to put yourself first and to say, hey, I matter and I'm the captain of my ship and I'm gonna steer this in the way that feels right for me. It is never too late. And like I say, I've got clients in their 70s who are having amazing results. I've got clients of all ages who are just like, right, I'm going to go start doing a PhD, or I'm going to leave this relationship that's really run its course, or I'm going to start a new creative project. I had one client who quit her job, moved to a new city in France, left her corporate law job behind and retrained as a photographer, and she's leading this incredible life.
Living a life you love. That's the whole thing,
exactly.
isn't it? It's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Oh, Mangala, it's been so lovely talking to you. Thank you so much for joining me. Now, if people are interested in what you do and want to get hold of you, how can they do that? We will put things in the show notes, but just tell us how they can get hold of you.
You can go to my website, mangalaholland.com, and I've also got a free 3-part video series called From Shutdown to Sensual Satisfaction. That's a very simple way to, very simple practices that take 5 minutes, like bite-sized things that you can do to start to feel what's going on in your body. So I'll share the link for you.
Yes, lovely. Give me all the links and I'll put them in the show notes. Fantastic. Oh, it's been lovely. Thank you so much, Mangala. Thank you.
Oh, you're most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Chronicles of Hope podcast with me, Annie Bennett. I hope you found inspiration, comfort, or perhaps even a newfound perspective around the meaning of hope. To find out more about the aims of the Chronicles of Hope organisation, please visit thechroniclesofhope.org, where you will find links to our social media accounts and where you will be able to make a much needed and appreciated donation. Thank you.